Whenever I was scared as a kid, my dad always told me that in life, you should never be afraid of ghosts. Fear the living, he said, because they can actually hurt you. In my late teenage years, I came into some money after my father took his own life, and I received an inheritance from him. At the time of his passing, he and my mom owned a cabin up in Oregon near Mount Bachelor. The cabin had been put up for sale since my mom could no longer afford it, and renting it out wasn't covering the costs either. The cabin was set to go on the market in less than a month, and the paperwork with the realtor and lawyer was already in the final stages. So for that month, the cabin was going to be vacant. I saw this as a chance to get away for a while and clear my head, considering everything that had happened. I quit work, packed up my snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog Midnight, and headed up in my dad's car to the cabin. My first 2 days there were normal, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. I spent the days playing with Midnight in the snow and snowboarding, and the evenings were spent playing PlayStation, listening to music, drinking, and smoking on the balcony. I had already stocked up on food, cigarettes, and liquor, so I was pretty set, aside from the occasional trip to the slopes. With my dog's company and DVDs on PlayStation for entertainment, I was quite content and started to feel relaxed after all the drama that had preceded my getaway. The cabin was 2 stories. The bottom floor had the living room, a side guest room, and a small kitchen. Upstairs, there were 2 more bedrooms, along with a walkout balcony attached to the largest room. Most of my time was either spent in the living room, kitchen, or the bedroom. I never really ventured into the other rooms and simply kept the doors leading to them shut. The 3rd day came around, and I was going through my usual routine, but I decided to stay in instead of hitting the slopes. That's when things started getting weird. In the area, there were only 2 other cabins near ours, the equivalent of about a block away from each other. Both of these other cabins were empty, and from the past couple of days, I knew no one was currently staying there. Any other cabins aside from those 2 were at least a mile away. Surrounding us was mostly forest and very tall pine trees. Around midday, while outside with Midnight, I noticed what looked like footprints in the snow around the area surrounding our cabin. It was still snowing, so the footprints looked semi-fresh, like someone had just been there in the last 20 or 30 minutes before me. I thought maybe someone was staying in one of the other cabins near me that I hadn't noticed. Maybe they had gotten snowed in like me. The footprints led away from the cabin and disappeared into the snow towards the denser part of the trees. I disregarded them and went back inside. That night, I was getting ready to go to sleep. Midnight was laying on the bed with me when I noticed his ears perk up. He jumped off the bed and ran downstairs to the living room. I lay there in silence, freaked out. I could hear him moving around downstairs, pacing back and forth. After about 5 minutes, he ran back upstairs to me and started doing his doggy dance, a sign that he needed to go outside. Fine, I can't say no to him. So we both went downstairs to the outside driveway for him to do his thing. But instead of peeing, he started pulling at his leash, trying to drag me to a spot where he kept looking in the dense part of the trees where those footprints had been earlier. He also kept sniffing at the side of the house and looking up toward the roof. When he realized I wasn't going to follow him, he sat down and stared into the darkness. It was a bit unusual for him, but all right. Maybe there was some forest animal out there that he wanted to chase down. But I didn't want to chase anything, so I pulled him back inside, and we headed upstairs to bed. I was lying in bed when I heard what sounded like hooves walking on my roof. It was only a series of about 6 steps, and I rationalized that it could have been a pine cone falling from a tree, or maybe some small animal running around. But the steps seemed spaced apart, like a human-length stride. Midnight ran to the balcony screen door, expecting me to let him out. I considered myself to be a tough guy at the time, fairly well built and strong enough to handle myself, so I grabbed my coat, shoes, cigarettes, and flashlight and went outside to the balcony. As soon as I stepped outside, I lit up a cigarette and began scanning the roof with my light. Nothing. The snow up top was undisturbed. I started to calm down and relax again. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I kept smoking while staring at the stars and the trees next to our cabin. That's when I saw it. In a tree that was a little taller than the cabin, about 20 feet from the balcony, I saw what looked like a man crouched in a squatting position between 2 branches. It looked really tall, like 8 or 9 feet, and was really skinny. It was squatting on one branch, and its freakishly long, white arms were extended above its head, holding on to the branch above it. Its mouth was wide open, with no expression. I couldn't be sure if I was really seeing this thing, and I just stood there, staring. It was motionless, not moving at all. Midnight had started pacing behind me, lightly barking at the same time. The thing still did not move. I put out my cigarette and debated shining the flashlight in the thing's direction, but something in my head screamed not to. So I walked backwards into the house, pulling Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and shined the light in the direction of the tree, but there was nothing there. I shut the curtains and retreated back to bed. Later that night, I heard tapping on the screen door, like someone was tapping on the glass with their fingers. It was consistent and didn't stop for nearly an hour. Midnight kept staring at the door, but would not go near it anymore. The weirdest part is that I had this feeling like someone was inviting me to open the door. But at the same time, I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head, telling me to stay in bed and not open it. I listened to my dad's voice and stayed where I was. Eventually, I passed out. When I woke up in the morning, I packed up everything and got the hell out of there. I'd been seeing this girl for a few weeks. We matched on a dating app and met a few days later. She was 4 years older than me. Her name was Phoebe. We'd gone on 2 dates. Our first date was drinks, and our second date, we went to my friends for a weekend hangout. My friends had neutral opinions about her. They thought she was nice, but kind of quiet. Later, they would reveal their actual thoughts on her, but I'll get to that in a bit. Phoebe invited me to an upcoming high school reunion party. She told me she didn't want to go alone, and honestly, after she came to hang out with all my friends, I felt like I owed her. The reunion was taking place on some random Saturday in the fall, but it wasn't organized by her school. She said it was put together by some rich guy from her class, and it was hosted at his house. I hadn't had a reunion yet, but as far as I knew, these things were usually held at bars or catering halls. We got to the guy's house, and I'll admit, it was a fancy-looking place. As soon as we stepped into the house, I immediately felt like everyone was staring at us. Or more specifically, me. A few people came up to Phoebe and hugged her hello, then shifted their attention to me. It felt almost like I was being interrogated, with questions like, "What's your life story? What do you do for a living? Who do you live with?" Finally, Phoebe pulled me away to talk to more people. But these people were also asking weird, personal questions. There was something off about the whole group, and most of them looked older than 28, which was the age Phoebe told me she was. Some of them looked well into their 30s. I made a comment about this to Phoebe, and she said, "Yeah, some of these people aren't aging too well." I asked if she knew or at least recognized everyone there, and she said yes. I then asked who the host was, as I was curious to meet the owner of such a nice house. She said she hadn't seen him yet. The entire time I was there, I felt like everyone was shooting daggers at me. No one would look away. I kept mentioning this to Phoebe, but she just said they probably just wondered who I was. At the time, this seemed logical enough, but the awkwardness in the air was growing heavier. This was definitely not what I expected from a high school reunion. There was no music, and everyone was dressed strangely. And honestly, I'm not sure any of these people were in their 20s at all. I told Phoebe I was running to the bathroom, but in reality, I wanted to explore the house a bit. I didn't have a drink or anything to help me feel at ease, so I was just walking around this giant house empty-handed, and everyone I passed stared at me. To say I felt out of place would be an understatement. I found a bathroom and stepped inside, even though I didn't have to go. I locked the door just to sit and collect my thoughts, taking a break from the weirdness outside. While sitting there, I texted my friends about how strange the reunion was and asked how I could convince Phoebe we should leave early. We'd been there for about 30 to 45 minutes, and this mystery party host was still nowhere to be seen. Phoebe texted me asking where I was. I said I was in the bathroom and needed a minute. Then I followed that text with, "This party is weird. I'm down to leave soon." She texted back, "Why?" I said, "Everyone's being weird." Just as I sent that, someone knocked on the bathroom door, which meant I couldn't sit in there longer. I quickly washed my hands and left the bathroom. The guy waiting outside said in a very low voice, "You should leave." I froze for a second. Then he said, "That girl isn't who she said she is." "What did she tell you this party is?" I told him, "She said it was a high school reunion." He smirked and said, "Do any of these people look like they're at a high school reunion? Trust me, leave sooner than later." Then he went into the bathroom and shut the door. I wanted to knock on the door and ask him to explain more, but I stopped myself. I was already so uncomfortable in that house, and that guy just confirmed that something weird was going on. I walked straight to the front door without drawing attention to myself though I still felt people staring as I made my way to the exit. I went straight to my car on the street and drove home. Phoebe texted me asking where I went, but I didn't respond. When I got home, I looked up her number on White Pages. The number came up as belonging to Claire Foster, not Phoebe. The address that I had picked her up at both times was also different from the one on White Pages. Then I realized I'd never seen her leave the house. She was waiting on the sidewalk for me both times. My friends all made jokes about it and told me they thought she was weird and off from the start, but didn't want to make me feel bad. One of my friends joked that it sounded like I was in the movie Get Out. I texted her back, "I had to leave, sorry." And then I blocked her number.